For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. In our special series, Borderline Xi, we continue to have conversations with China specialists, China experts. And today, we are conversing with Jayadeva Ranade, of course, not a very unfamiliar face on StratNewsGlobal, and someone who watches China and its activities very closely from an Indian point of view, from a world point of view, and someone who gives opinion as he sees it and not go by the narrative that is normally prevalent. So welcome to this program, and this is something that we've tried to do 10 years after Depsang 1. And I remember your piece immediately after Depsang 1 in April 2013 or May 2013, where you had said that this is going to be a norm. And truly, after 10 years, when we see that China has become aggressive with its neighbors and its policies are as belligerent as they could get. So what drives this policy to begin with?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Nitin. Thank you for inviting me. I think April 2013, when the Depsang incident happened, it was unusual. Unusual in the duration, long duration of the intrusion, unusual in the sense of the quality of the intrusion. And at that time, I'd said that this indicates a new Chinese attitude towards us, at least in terms of an overt display of Chinese attitude. And that is what we are seeing. I think there are two things I'd mention here. One, that Hu Jintao, that is Xi Jinping's predecessor, had already started hardening China's posture, including in the foreign policy field. But he was, if I may say, smart enough to back off when he found resistance was too much.
Right.
Like, for example, the United States, when he was trying to push a new type of big power relationship.
Sure.
Xi Jinping has taken up those policies, but he feels, I think, that this is the right time for him to push ahead with it. At least that is what it was in 2013.
Right.
And since then, we have seen a series of aggressive actions, belligerent actions against all the neighbors.
Sure.
And of course, we feel it immediately because of our shared land border.
Right.
I don't expect that to ease off. Unless, of course, we make concessions for the Chinese, major concessions, which I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So I expect some more push by Xi Jinping. And I think in any case, what he has done in April 2020 is a half-finished agenda.
Okay. We'll talk about that agenda, but I want to understand, and I've been asking this question to whoever I've been able to speak, is what drives this belligerence? Is it the confidence in the abilities of the Chinese state now, both economically and militarily, to take on open multiple fronts? Or is it Xi Jinping's own personality which is driving this, or is a combination of the two?
Well, it's, let me add a third thing to that.
Okay.
The Chinese leadership has built up this theme among its own people that, they have been humiliated and they have to get back the territories that were lost through the imposition of unequal treaties.
Okay.
Now, that is a number of territories all around, including, of course, with us.
Yes.
So that is the first thing that he has. The second, China is now strong. It's economically strong. It's militarily strong. It's got a lot of diplomatic influence. So he feels that this is the right time to make the push. The third with that is his perception that the United States is a power in decline.
Right.
And that perception persists. In fact, if at all, they feel that it is maybe accelerated the decline. But now, as of the last 1.5, 2 years since the war in Ukraine is started, I think there is also a feeling, at least among Xi Jinping and his immediate coterie, that the window for them is shrinking.
Okay.
Because the United States would either turn its attention to them after what is happening in Ukraine, or maybe simultaneously. But there is apprehension within the Chinese Communist Party that Xi Jinping has mishandled the relationship with the United States, thereby putting China under greater pressure. So I think these are the factors that are pushing him now, and he feels the window is shrinking, but he has to achieve this objective of rejuvenation of the great Chinese nation. What
He calls it like that. And you've spoken about this even in earlier programs, that we shouldn't lower our guard, India shouldn't lower the guard, despite whatever overtures or whatever push that may come from the Chinese for reconciliation or even temporary truce. And it will be temporary, I presume. So what should India primarily and other countries do to counter the Chinese belligerence? What would you prescribe?
Well, the first thing, I mean, it may sound that I'm taking a tough posture, but let me say it's a realistic approach. We seem to, every time there is so-called conciliatory gesture from the other side, whether it's Pakistan or China, we seem to, jump forward and say that, peace has broken out. That's not the case. Here, if China does make any kind of overture, it has to be viewed as a tactical move. Short-term tactical move to ease the pressure on China, whatever kind of pressure it may be. So that is how we need to look at it. Second, we should not ease up on our defense infrastructure construction along the border area. That needs to be pursued. And third, I think whatever negotiations we are having on the border, whatever posture we have adopted regarding the border issue, that has to be maintained. And until and unless we get tangible concessions from the Chinese or tangible, shall I say, solutions from Chinese, there is no question of saying that, everything is now normal. So I think that is very important for us. And I know there will be pressures, people saying that, well, we also have economic modernization as an agenda, etc. But we can do it without, yielding ground to the Chinese. And I think that is important for us at this stage.
But do you think others, like-minded, I can't call them victims, but like-minded parties that are affected or countries that are affected, like Japan, Australia, and the smaller neighbors in Southeast Asia, would they also look at it this way and try and counter China either together or individually? Japan certainly is trying to do, from what it seems.
Definitely. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned Japan, because Japan is holding firm. And Vietnam is holding firm in its own way. Australia, similarly, though they're, looking at the trade thing, trying to draw a balance. But that is what makes it all the more important for us not to yield ground and not to even appear to be yielding ground. I mean, it's all right if they say that, Xi Jinping is coming here and therefore there'll be some goodwill gesture. But it doesn't alter the fact as to what they've done in Ladakh and what they attempted in Arunachal. And I can almost bet that there will be more, incidents or incursions taking place, certainly after Xi Jinping's visit. If not during.
Which have happened in 2014 September when he was here. Shumar happened, and and that is all there to see for everyone, really. But looking at it in a slightly larger perspective, let's say, what the Russians are now trying to do, and what the Chinese have mentioned a couple of times after the summit between Putin and Xi, there was a mention of how the trilaterals and multilateral organizations like BRICS and WTO and trilaterals like RIC, Russia, India, China, should be revived, and that is in the interest of these three big nations. So should India look at it that way, or should India just do what it needs to do for itself, rather than just get drawn into these homilies which come from the Chinese mainly, but the Prussians also seem to be playing that same game?
I think here, Nitin, you've opened up a different kind of question, which I think is important. When we look at Russia, India and China, I would at least say that China is the overwhelming economy and military power. Russia has become, if not entirely, at least close to being subordinate to China.
Absolutely.
It may not be totally, but it's heading there.
True.
And its capacities are getting diminished. Chinese writings themselves, in fact, there was an article by their Chinese Institutes of Contemporary International Relations,
Right.
which is the 11th Bureau of the Ministry of State Security. They have spoken about Russia's diminished capacity for innovation and production of defense hardware.
Sure.
So everyone is noticing it. Now, in that position, what advantage do we get from an RIC or anything like that?
Exactly.
I don't see any. In fact, I would say that we are soon going to approach a time when the lines may be even more starkly drawn.
Right.
And we may have to make a choice. I don't see, as I said earlier, China becoming friendly towards us
No.
for a long time.
Yeah.
At least till their objectives are met, and we, of course, will not allow that.
Yeah.
Russia, well, it remains to be seen. It can't vanish. It's
Sure.
a huge country.
Yes.
It's got a lot of resources.
Right.
But what is its capacity going to be, except for a very limited purpose?
Yeah.
Like everyone talks about the Russian veto.
Yes.
But the Kashmir issue is now being raised by the Chinese also.
Exactly.
So I think we have to be very, very careful of this RIC, etc. We are in it,
Sure.
but all right, it can continue.
Yeah.
We are in BRICS, similarly, where the overwhelming power is China,
Yeah.
none of the others.
Absolutely.
So what is the point in continuing in the organization is something that we have to think about. But for the moment, I would say let it drift.
Yeah, because there is also the counter view that if you get too close to the United States or the Western world, then the Chinese come at you more aggressively, and therefore you have to balance that. And we are the only country amongst the Quad members which has a long disputed land border. So therefore, we have to deal with the Chinese on our own terms, like others are dealing. So in that, I think this is a challenge for the Indian leadership, the Indian diplomacy, as well as the strategic decision makers, I suppose. So are you foreseeing difficult days ahead as we approach general elections in India and as Xi Jinping becomes more and more powerful? What's your prognosis?
Well, I agree with you that it's going to, be difficult for our leadership. But let me just respond to your opening remark on that. That as we got closer to the United States, the Chinese decided to get belligerent. What about 2013? Were we that there in the United States when the Chinese? So the Chinese agenda, to my point of view, is independent of how close or otherwise we are to the US.
And they use this just as an excuse.
As an excuse that, okay, at the moment, our being closer to the United States is a source of discomfort for the Chinese. But that's all. It's nothing more. It's like people saying, because the Dalai Lama is in India, therefore there is a problem. It's not so. And if we go back, in fact, even to the 50s, problems are already started.
Sure.
So I don't buy that story. I don't think that's the case. As far as our
It
leadership,
suits them actually, the Chinese, to say that.
to say that,
Right.
so that the left elements here or the others here also start pointing out to that and saying, well, you see, this is why it's happening.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry.
But
You were
I
saying
think the
something.
leadership here, our leadership, yes, it will be a difficult time. But I think they've been deft enough in managing it so far.
Right.
And if I may suggest something or venture an assessment or a remark,
Right.
as we go further, our needs are going to increase. Our needs for modernizing ourselves,
Sure.
our economy is going to increase. And I'll just put a question to you. Where are we going to get the capital necessary from? Where are we going to get the technology from?
Right.
And who's going to provide any diplomatic heft that is required? Certainly not the Chinese.
No.
Russians are incapable of it.
Yeah.
So you draw your own conclusion
exactly.
where you have to go.
No, that's true. And therefore, the challenge to keep it well balanced, not giving up our interest vis-a-vis China, and yet making sure that you draw the best out of the West, without again, compromising too much or giving away too much. But just on the other front about the border itself, you've said in the past, and I know nothing much has changed after that. But just to reiterate. Do you think the Chinese are ever interested in clarifying the LAC at all, or it's just going to be one temporary halt or a reprieve for a while and then start off again?
The short answer is no. They're in no hurry to clarify the LAC, to draw a boundary, or even to exchange the maps. Which they haven't yet done. So I don't see that happening in hurry. The second thing is, if we go a step further, as I said, the Chinese want to recover all the territories that they lost.
Which is their 2049.
Yes, exactly. So if you look at those maps, then the whole of Ladakh, Arunachal, Andamans, all that is claimed by them.
Yes.
I don't think they'll get it, but that's their objective.
Sure.
So either they'll make a bid for it, or a massive slice of it,
Right.
or it will come down to negotiation if they find that we are firm and unwilling to yield. And I
Right.
think that is important.
That is important.
Once they sense that our resolve is strong enough, then maybe a negotiation will start.
Sure.
But as they say, the devil lies in the details. The problem here, or the joker in the pack, is what is happening in Pakistan.
Right.
The POK area, the development of the CPEC,
Sure.
the Chinese build-up in Xinjiang, these are the problems that we, I think, need to look at, because China is consolidating its position in areas that are ours and occupied by Pakistan
Right.
illegally.
Correct.
So that could be a source of tension there.
I see. So one final thought on this entire belligerent Xi and what we are calling borderline Xi, who wants to settle or reclaim borders, as you've said, which were traditionally, according to their claim, Chinese. So could he do a similar thing? We have spoken about this earlier, but I still want to revisit that, because everybody says that for him Taiwan is more important than India, and therefore India shouldn't worry too much. Is that a futile thought? I would think, but I wanted your endorsement for it if it is true.
It's a futile thought. Taiwan is important,
Right.
so are these.
So
And they keep making a point about it. And you see, latest visit by our Home Minister to Arunachal,
Sure.
Chinese reaction is pretty strong.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to give up on that.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing inside China is Xi is sort of promoting himself in every way.
Right.
And with the result that People's Daily has now started referring, they got a little column there saying civilization
I see.
instead of Chinese civilization. So that's what's happening.
So the supreme leader is trying to become more and more dominant in every aspects of life, I suppose, in China. But that's perhaps there lie the seeds of maybe self-destruction. We don't know. That's what people say when when dictators become all powerful or pervading, then that happens. But that's a different conversation altogether. But thank you for this conversation. We were doing this as to mark 10th anniversary of Depsang 1, and we are still to resolve Depsang 2, or the Depsang 1 is to be resolved still. So we'll see how it goes. But it was important to flag, Xi Jinping's belligerence, or PNA's belligerence over the past decade. So thank you for this, and we'll keep coming back to you whenever something on China comes up. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Nitin.
Yeah, so there you are, Mr. Jayadeva Ranade giving his thoughts on what Xi Jinping is all about and how belligerent and aggressive the PLA has been over the past decade. We have listed out those incidents that started with Depsang, then came Chumawar in 2014, then came Dolam or Doklam in 2017, then of course Ladakh, and then Yangtze in December 2022. We don't know where the next intrusion or attempted intrusion is going to come from, but at StratNewsGlobal we wanted to do this series to flag what the Chinese attitude has been towards its neighbors and more particularly towards India. So do keep watching StratNewsGlobal and send your feedback. Your comments are always welcome. And do subscribe to our social media handles, which are all visible on the screen. And keep watching our programs as and when they are broadcast. For the time being, it's goodbye.